Tonight, we're going to discuss Lennox Sam and its Davidian Seventh-day Adventist Church organization. This is part one of 3 parts, and we're going to go into who is Lennox Sam? What is this Davidian Seventh-day Adventist Church organization stand for? There's been a lot of discussion over the years. I know many brethren have come to us and we're basically curious and want to know just what is this movement about. And as we searched the internet, as we searched YouTube, we didn't find too many videos. I don't think we recall very many specific videos dedicated to showing what this movement is about. So we have sought the Lord. We prayed and we said, Lord, help us to make a presentation so that the brethren can know what the truth of this movement is about. And so we prayed. We asked that you do the same, claim the promise of John 16:13, and let's take this report and get into it. Let's get into the situation so that you can see firsthand what this brother is doing in a very active way amongst us Davidian Seventh-day Adventists. Okay, so the question is, why are we discussing Lennox Sam? Well, basically, there's a few reasons. The first one is track 3, page 11. Clearly, therefore, any attitude which disposes one not to make a candid investigation of any message that purports to be additional truth must inevitably bring ruin upon oneself. So, he has declared that he has some truth for us. He has some supplemental beliefs that we as Davidians should make affirmations and confirm that this is really what the message tells us. So Brother Sam has composed websites, numerous videos in hopes of clarifying, if you will, the message for us today. And so this is his purporting of his truth. And so we want to get to the bottom of it, see whether it's true, whether it's compared to the rod and stands firm with the rod or firmly against the rod. So, and of course, we do have to point out that symbolic code 3, number 3 and 4, page 13, does give us a warning. Satan is represented by human beings and is ever busy distracting present truth believers, destroying their influence among people, and thus making truth of none effect. His great and lasting victories have not been won by opposing the truth, but rather by professing strictly to advocate every precept of it, and by showing great reverence and zeal for its advancement, thus gaining the confidence of the people and making them believe him to be a zealous minister of God and a friend of his people. Then, having beguiled them into placing confidence in him and into being perfectly satisfied that he is leading them on to eternal glory, he easily and quietly leads his victims to eternal ruin. So this is a warning, brethren, that we need to be very, very cautious if we're going to be professing and learning and following and just basically having a leader, a minister amongst us as a leader for us. We have to be very cautious because this is how Satan will find a way to trick us. Okay, so in this report, many of you remember, particularly the older of us, the generation, will remember the famous movie called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and that starred Clint Eastwood. And so in this report, we recognize that there's going to be 3 distinct descriptions, we believe, of this report. We're going to first bring you the good. And secondly, we're going to bring you the bad. And then we're going to bring the really bad, or in this case, the ugly. And so this is a movie that caught our eye as we were searching for things, and the Lord reminded us this is really a good summation of what this report's going to entail. All right, let's go first to the good. Many of you are very aware of this current controversy that we have amongst us as Davidian Seventh-day Adventists, and that is the new codes. We are becoming more and more aware of the situation with the new codes, and this happened right around the beginning of the year 2000 when the computer age came upon us, and many of us, for the first time, were able to learn quite a lot about the new code situation because of this expansion of knowledge. And one of the good things that Lennox Sam and Brother Michael Graham came was a 15-page report in 2002 to the Waco organization in Texas, and they submitted their report to the Biblical Research Committee. And if you ever have a chance, there's a link down below there to go on and see that report. I think you'll be very impressed. So Sam and Graham both came and brought this report to us and really shed some light on things that weren't discussed too much prior to that. And so this is a good thing that Sam has done. And so we appreciate that. And so we'll continue. Okay, we have to give a warning, and that is that we're told any other voices will lead us into perdition. And of course, we found that in the General Conference Special, page 8. One's only safety will be in the teaching of Elijah, for there will be no other voice of timely truth and authority to whom one may turn. Any others will lead their victims blindfolded into perdition. So this is very, very key to us to be careful that the teachings of Elijah is the one and only message that we need to stand upon. Any other person that comes and gives us a remodeling of the message or a different understandings of the message that isn't grounded in the rod, they will lead us into perdition. Now, when you go on to Lennox Sam's site, what you'll see is this picture of the very famous picture. Bonnie, I believe Bonnie Smith is the one that brought this to us, Sister Bonnie Smith, and it was taken of the main building 8, which was the office building. And one of the things that we love about this picture, aside from just beautiful clock and the scenery here of the office, is, if you'll notice here, we'll take the arrow and look right here. Isn't that beautiful, brethren? The Lord has put a cross in the form of the light when this picture was taken. So we saw this a while back. We brought it to Brother Don Adair's attention, and he wasn't even aware of it at that time. And so this is a beautiful thing here, an encouraging sign, in other words, that this is divine. What this work did for us is truly divine. Okay, so now we're going to get into the bad here, what we feel is bad for us as Davidians. And that is basically from Lennox Sam's website, you can read his mission statement. And the underlying part is what we want to concentrate on here, because this is what's called the first mission of Sam's organization. In other words, he's telling us as Davidian Seventh-day Adventists that our first mission is basically to help the faithful to get ready for the Lord's coming to his temple. Now notice what this coming is. It's to the Davidian Seventh-day Adventist Church to commence the great and dreadful day of the Lord. So we're not, according to him, our first mission is not to go to Mother and warn of the Ezekiel 9 to the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Our first mission, according to him, is to go to each other and warn of the Davidian Seventh-day Adventist, Ezekiel 9. This is what it says, first mission. Okay, so we notice in that first mission statement that he takes Malachi 3:1 and uses that for his mission statement. And we're all familiar with Malachi 3:1. Behold, I will send my messenger, and he shall prepare the way before me. And the Lord, whom ye seek, shall suddenly come to his temple, even the messenger of the covenant, whom ye delight in. Behold, he shall come, saith the Lord of hosts. So this is the scriptural reference that he puts in the mission statement, suddenly coming to his temple. And so what we want to do now is we want to see, well, how does the rod interpret Malachi 3:1? We saw from the mission statement that Sam proclaims that that has a first application with the Davidian Seventh-day Adventist Church. But what does the rod say about Malachi 3:1? This is very important because this is the tube, one of the two pipes coming from the trees and taking Malachi 3:1, taking all the scriptures and putting them into the bowl for us to understand. So we have to go to the bowl and see what it says about Malachi 3:1. This is very key as we go through our studies here. What does the rod say about Malachi 3:1? Well, if you'll go to the Shepherd's Rod Index, you'll find that there's over 50 quotes in the rod that talk of Malachi 3:1. And this first one, we can see he quotes Malachi 3:1-3, and then he says, as the cleansings called for in the parables and in the Malachi prophecy have never taken place, the investigative judgment of the living is obviously then yet future. This investigative work is therefore occasioned by the work of separation in the earthly sanctuary church, as brought to view also in Ezekiel 9. From this separation, the one in the church come forth the first fruits. Then follows the separation from among nations, as seen in the parable of Matthew 25. So we see very clearly, and this is why we highlighted, the one in the church. This is talking about Ezekiel 9 separation. Do we see that? It's very clear, brethren. The one in the church. Doesn't say one of two in the church or anything like that. It's clearly describing, and you'll find this throughout the interpretations of Malachi 3:1. As we'll go further, we'll show some more. Okay, and this one is found in Timely Greetings, Volume 2, number 31, page 3 and 4. First, he quotes the quote from Malachi 3:1, and then he says, here the scriptures point out that someone in the spirit and power of Elijah the prophet is first to appear and will not only prepare the way, but will also restore all things. Plainly, the message of Elijah shall restore all things in the great and dreadful day of the Lord, the day of restitution, the day the Lord comes to his temple again, the church. So we see again that according to inspiration, according to the rod, Malachi 3:1 means the day. Not 1 or 2 days, but the day the Lord comes to his temple, the church. Okay, so we need to remember again and again, as you go through these 50 references, you'll see the same preponderance of evidence. The day, the church. Not a day, or the first of 2 days, or the 11th hour church, or one of his 2 last churches, anything like that, brethren. This is all made up. Private interpretation in that mission statement. And this is why we want to continue to show exactly what that mission statement is compared to the rod, what it says. Okay, we have another quote. It's from 2TG number 41, page 3. I have been asked to give a study on current events, on the Palestine situation, and on the separation caused by the slaughter that is forecast in Ezekiel's vision. I wish that I could tell you all you want to know, but I cannot say how soon the separation, the purification of the church, Testimonies, Volume 5, page 80, will take place. God alone knows the time. All I know is that it cannot take place before we prepare the way, before our God-given work in connection with Ezekiel 9 is done. Then it will come to pass that the Lord will suddenly come to his temple, the church, and purify the sons of Levi, the ministry, Malachi 3, verse 1 to 3. But those who receive not the mark will fall under the slaughter weapons of the angels, as did the unfaithful firstborn in the night of the Passover in the land of Egypt. Again, we see the church, the purification. Okay, so we have to very closely pay attention to each and every word. In fact, I want to break away real quick here and read one of the statements the rod says about each word, and that's found in Symbolic Code, Volume 2, number 7 to 8, page 10. Hence, as there are no useless words in either of the writings, he's talking about spirit prophecy or the rod, those who desire to know the truth must carefully mark every word. Otherwise, they will never comprehend the truth, and, as a consequence, they will be driven by the winds as the waves of the sea. Until the winds cease blowing, probation closes, and they will be left to sink down in their sins as do the waves in the sea. Beautiful. This is, again, Symbolic Code, Volume 2, number 78, page 10. All right, let's bring another quote, and that's found in White House Recruiter, page 29. In other parabolic terms, the great and dreadful day of the Lord is his casting out the bad fish and putting the good into vessels, Matthew 13, 47, 48. It is the day in which he sets the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on his left, Matthew 25, 33. It is the judgment day of the living, the cleansing of the sanctuary on earth, the work which purifies the church and makes it white. Again, we see a preponderance of evidence that this is one day. It's the day. It's the Ezekiel 9 that we've been taught throughout the rod. Okay, so we have another one, 2TG number 30, page 11 and 12. He first quotes Malachi 3, verse 1 and 2, and then again Malachi 4 and 5. And at the bottom he says, the messenger of the covenant of the promise, antitypical Elijah the prophet, shall prepare the way. He shall restore all things. As he prepares the way, the Lord will suddenly come to his temple, to his church. And what is the work to be? To purify or cleanse his people by weeding the unrepentant sinners from among them. So again, we have more clarity here that he is to come to his church and he is to purify and cleanse his people by weeding the unrepentant sinners from among them. Okay, we had mentioned the 50 references, and so you can pause this video if you'd like and write down all of the quotes that we have found for you in the Shepherd's Rod Index describing Malachi 3:1. And some of them are all the way 3:1 to 5. But like we said, there's over 50. And this is the first set here, and then we'll have the second set here. And there you go. That's all 50 of them. And there may be more than that. I think there might be 52. But we want you, if you want to be serious about getting to the bottom of this man's purported truth, we'd like you to write each one of these down. Look for yourself. Study on your own. And see the preponderance of evidence about how the rod interprets Malachi 3:1 to 5, suddenly come into his temple. Does the rod give us any indication that this is a sudden coming to 11th hour church or pre-purification or anything? No, it's completely talking about one purification, the church, the separation. This is very key, brethren, that we need to remember. All right, now we're going to get to the really bad. This is what we call the ugly. And this is the teaching of Lennox Sam, and that's regard to the purifications. Now, this is taken from his timeline to the kingdom chart. One of the brothers, one of the leaders of one of the major organizations sent this to us. And this is what it specifically says. Let's pay it close attention. It has on his chart, and it says on April 15th to 21st, 2000. It doesn't give the specific year in the 20th century, the 2000, 21, 23, whatever. He leaves that open. The 6 men with their slaughter weapons slay the wicked in the 11th hour church, the antitypical Passover, for a period of 7 days. Weeping and gnashing of teeth, while the 6 men with the slaughter weapons slay the foolish virgins in the 11th hour church. And we know that Sam's teaching is that the 11th hour church is the Davidian Seventh-day Adventist church. So here we see that on specific dates, he is proclaiming that it's going to be on April 15th to the 21st. We don't know the year, but it's sometime in the near future, or a future 2000 year of some type. And let's continue. Okay, it says further, April 22nd to September 18th, 2000 and some year, the angel pours out the Spirit upon the first of the first fruits, the wise virgins of the 11th hour church, and the Lord takes the reins in his hands through one shepherd, the antitypical David. The ox plow stage of the sealing message begins. The shepherd rod message in its purity is preached to the 9th hour church. So I'm going to stop there for a second. So we see that according to his teachings, on April 22nd, all the way to a specific date. We notice that he's specifically time setting specifically days that this certain works will be done. And the Spirit is poured out to give the message to the SDA church. And that is who he refers to as the 9th hour church. And then on September 19th, a specific day, 2000 and something, the Lord instructs the man with the writer's inkhorn to mark all the saints that join the 11th hour church, while the 5 others slay the wicked that remained in the 9th hour church. After the slaying is completed, the Lord returns to heaven. The 9th hour church no longer exists. The name left as a curse to the 11th hour church. So this is what you can find on his timeline to the kingdom chart. Now let's look what the rod says. The message sets no date, either exact or approximate, for the closing of the judgment of the dead or for the beginning of the judgment of the living. The time of the cessation of one event and the beginning of the other is not to be known until the one is past and the other began. This found in Answer, Volume 1, page 94 to 95. Now, isn't that very, very clear? I don't think we have any confusion here. It does not set a date, either exact or approximately. So we see that Sam has now told us approximately, not exact, but approximately the time. He sets a specific, exact dates. You notice that? He's mixing and matching to set a certain approximately time. This is not what we're told right here. We're told it does not happen. The rod does not say this. So we see an extra pipe being put into the golden bowl. This is very clear from this. Okay, so on our next presentation, we're going to go over his supplemental beliefs. And on his website, he makes it very well known that we as Davidian Seventh-day Adventists should have these supplemental beliefs as true Davidian Seventh-day Adventists. And so we're going to go over, not all of them, there's 22, but of these 22, we found that number 3, number 7 is the next ones that we'd like to go over, and that's concerning the two Ezekiel 9s, the two purifications. And in the final part 3, what we're going to go over is number 22, which is about the antitypical David. And if you'll remember, the Sam teaches that the antitypical David is not going to be Brother Hodoff. In fact, that's what we'll go over in number 22. He clearly says it's not going to be him. It's going to be a living person. He's alive today and is going to be alive in the near future. Now, I want to remind somebody of this. You see, Satan is very sneaky. You can find this evidence from Don Adair's book called Davidian Seventh-day. Let me see, what's the name of that? That's called A Davidian Testimony by Don Adair. A very, very well-read book by us Davidians for the history of the early days. And Don Adair, of course, was a live witness to what happened, particularly in the last couple of years with Brother Hodoff and the subsequent events after his death. And so he was very close and well familiar with Ben Roden. And he tells the story. In fact, he just repeated this to us a few days ago when we talked on the phone. We had to order some material, but he told us of the story again, which we thought was very providential because we were making this video at the same time. But he said that Ben Roden and his wife came up and basically said, well, you know that Brother Hodoff died, and therefore he really couldn't be the antitypical Elijah, because we know that Elijah did not die. And so Brother Adair listened to it, and he responded, well, who is this Elijah? And according to Don Adair, they waited a little bit and got a little bit silent there for a little bit, and then said, well, it's the wife, Lois said, well, it's my husband, Ben. And Don says, is that true? And Ben said, yes. And so Ben Roden is now did the same thing that now Sam is trying to do. They claim that they dead Brother Hodoff cannot be the antitypical Elijah because he's not alive. You see how Satan works? This was the same trick used long ago, and now it's been repeated. Now remember that Shepherd's Rod Volume 1, page 47 give us a strong clue about this whole situation. And that says Ezekiel 9 fits Elijah's experience for this reason. The prophet or the message is called Elijah with the spirit and power of Elijah. So we know that not only is the prophet known as Elijah, but the message is known as Elijah. And we have to say, has the message died? Absolutely not. The message is alive and well and prospering. Yes, it's in a slow period right now, but it's prospering and it's still alive. So this idea that Brother Hodoff is dead and therefore he cannot be the antitypical Elijah is false. And then, of course, we have 2TG number 31, page 4, where it says, someone in the spirit and power of Elijah the prophet is first to appear and will not only prepare the way, but will also restore all things. Plainly, the message of Elijah shall restore all things in the great and dreadful day. So we see again that the message shall restore all things. The rod tells us clearly it's not the prophet necessarily that restores all things. It's the message. And so we would do well to remember that when they present their false arguments about Brother Houteff being dead, therefore he cannot be the typical Elijah. So in concluding this first part 1, we wanted to remind ourselves about this well-known quote. Jesus has warned us to beware of false teachers. From the beginning of our work, men have arisen from time to time, advocating theories that were new and startling. False teachers may appear to be very zealous for the work of God, and may expend means to bring their theories before the world and the church. But as they mingle error with truth, their message is one of deception, and will lead souls into false paths. They are to be met and opposed, not because they're bad men, but because they are teachers of falsehood and are endeavoring to put upon falsehood the stamp of truth. And we do want to say that from our understanding, we've had a conversation or two with Lennox Sam, as we do believe he's sincere. We don't believe he is necessarily a bad man, but nevertheless, because of falsehood, because of leading down false paths, he needs to be met and opposed. And that's the purpose of these video series, to let the brethren know what the truth is here. So we thank you very much for joining us on part 1, and we'll be coming back again very soon with part 2. And particularly, we'll go over the purifications that he teaches about, and we'll go over one of his main supports, and that is the harvest chart of Matthew 13. That's one of his go-to supports in promulgating his theory about this. So we'll break that down in our next video. So thank you once again for joining us, and until we see you next time, may God continue to guide you into all truth. John 16:13. Amen.